The room was silent except for the faint hum of the translator devices scattered across the large, circular table. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat stiffly in their seats, their eyes fixed on the two humans standing at the center of the chamber. Daniel Carter adjusted his jacket, his fingers brushing against the fabric as he steadied himself. Beside him, Karen Lewis crossed her arms, her expression calm but firm. The air felt heavy, charged with tension that seemed to press down on everyone present. For weeks, they had been here, negotiating, debating, and trying to make sense of demands that grew more unreasonable by the day. The Zorathians, a towering insectoid race with shimmering exoskeletons and cold, calculating eyes, had made it clear what they wanted: Earth's most advanced technology. In return, they promised protection from other hostile forces in the galaxy. But Daniel knew better. This wasn't protection. It was extortion. And he wasn't about to let humanity bow to such blatant coercion. "We've listened to your terms," Daniel began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. His words echoed through the chamber, translated instantly into dozens of languages. "But I must be equally clear in response. Earth will not surrender its innovations or compromise its independence. Your proposal is unacceptable." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. Some aliens leaned forward, intrigued by the boldness of this young species. Others exchanged skeptical glances, clearly doubting whether these fragile beings truly understood the stakes. The leader of the Zorathian delegation, a hulking figure named Vrek, shifted in his seat. His mandibles clicked softly as he processed Daniel's statement. "This is unwise," Vrek finally replied, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. "You are but one planet among billions. Without our guidance, you will fall prey to those who seek to exploit your weaknesses." Karen stepped forward then, her presence commanding attention. She locked eyes with Vrek, refusing to back down. "With respect, we don't need guidance. We need equality. If the galaxy wants peace, it must be built on trust and fairness, not threats." Vrek's antennae twitched slightly, a sign of irritation. He leaned closer, his shadow looming over the table. "Then you leave us no choice. Withdraw now, and you forfeit any claim to alliance or assistance. You will face the consequences alone." Daniel glanced at Karen briefly, silently confirming their resolve. Turning back to Vrek, he nodded once. "If that is how you choose to proceed, so be it." Without another word, Daniel turned and walked toward the exit, his boots clicking sharply against the polished floor. Karen followed close behind, her posture unwavering. As the doors slid shut behind them, the chamber erupted into chaos. Voices rose in confusion and disbelief. How could such an insignificant species dare to defy the mighty Zorathians? For centuries, civilizations had bent to their will, trading freedom for security. But these humans, they were different. Outside the negotiation hall, Daniel paused, letting out a slow breath. Karen placed a hand on his shoulder. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked quietly. He looked at her, his expression thoughtful but resolute. "We didn't come here to beg for scraps or sell ourselves short. We came to stand as equals. If they can't see that, then it's their loss, not ours." Little did they know, their decision would send shockwaves far beyond the walls of that chamber. By walking away, humanity had planted a seed, one that would grow into something greater than anyone could have imagined. Back on Earth, the news of the failed negotiations spread quickly. People gathered around televisions and holographic screens, watching reporters discuss what had happened at the Galactic Council. Some citizens felt fear creeping in. What would happen now that Earth was alone in the galaxy? Would the Zorathians attack? Others felt pride swelling in their chests. They admired Daniel Carter and Karen Lewis for standing up to the aliens who thought they could push humanity around. President Laura Bennett knew she had to act fast. She called a meeting with Earth's brightest minds, scientists, engineers, and strategists, to figure out the next steps. Among them was Richard Hayes, a physicist known for his groundbreaking work on energy systems. His wild hair and tired eyes betrayed long nights spent in the lab, but his ideas were always ahead of their time. Sitting beside him was Emily Dawson, a robotics expert whose creations had already revolutionized industries across the planet. Together, they listened as Laura laid out the challenge ahead. "We can't rely on anyone else," Laura said firmly. "If the galaxy won't help us, we'll help ourselves. We need solutions. Fast." Richard leaned forward, his eyes lighting up with excitement. "What if we focus on quantum reactors?" he suggested. "They could provide limitless clean energy. Not only would it power our cities, but it could also fuel new technologies we haven't even dreamed of yet." Emily nodded, adding her thoughts. "And with advanced AI, we can build smarter defenses, automated drones, orbital shields, maybe even self-repairing infrastructure. If we combine our efforts, we might just pull this off." The room buzzed with energy as plans began to take shape. Teams formed overnight, working around the clock in labs and factories. The government poured resources into the projects, and ordinary people volunteered their skills to help. Factories once used to make consumer goods were repurposed to produce components for futuristic machines. Schools taught students how to code and engineer, preparing the next generation for the challenges ahead. Months passed, and the results were astonishing. Cities transformed before people's eyes. Skyscrapers gleamed under solar panels powered by quantum reactors. Drones zipped through the skies, monitoring for threats and delivering supplies to remote areas. Orbital defense platforms circled the planet like silent guardians, ready to intercept any danger from space. News of Earth's progress didn't stay hidden for long. Reports reached neighboring star systems, sparking curiosity and concern among alien civilizations. Some species admired humanity's determination. Others grew uneasy, wondering how such a young race could achieve so much in so little time. Even the Zorathians took notice, though they dismissed it as a temporary surge of effort that would eventually fizzle out. But one day, something unexpected happened. A fleet of Zorathian ships appeared near Earth's borders, demanding compliance once again. Their message was clear: surrender your technology or face the consequences. This time, however, humanity wasn't caught off guard. Under Karen's leadership, Earth's military forces launched a swift and coordinated response. Advanced weaponry developed during the isolation period proved devastatingly effective. Missiles guided by AI struck with pinpoint accuracy, while energy shields deflected incoming attacks. Within hours, the Zorathians retreated, shocked by the ferocity of Earth's defense. As the battle ended, Daniel addressed the world via hologram. Standing in front of a backdrop of stars, he spoke with quiet confidence. "Today showed us one thing," he said. "No one controls our destiny but us. We've proven that when we stand together, there's nothing we can't overcome." People cheered, feeling a sense of unity they hadn't experienced in years. But deep down, everyone knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had taken its first steps toward true independence, but the galaxy was vast and full of challenges waiting to test them further. Word of Earth's victory over the Zorathians spread like wildfire across the galaxy. For decades, smaller species had lived under the shadow of powerful empires, too afraid to stand up for themselves. But now, humanity had shown that even a young and seemingly insignificant race could defy the odds. It wasn't long before ambassadors from distant worlds began reaching out to Earth, seeking alliances and partnerships. Among them was Nura, a representative of the Valens, a peaceful aquatic species known for their shimmering, translucent skin and gentle demeanor. She arrived on Earth with a proposal that would change everything. Standing in a conference room overlooking the ocean, Nira addressed Daniel Carter and Karen Lewis directly. "The Zorathians are not the only threat," she explained, her voice soft but urgent. "There are others, empires that crush weaker species without mercy. We believe it is time to unite those who seek freedom. Together, we can create a coalition of free worlds, standing against oppression." Daniel listened carefully, his brow furrowed in thought. The idea was bold, perhaps even risky. Humanity had only just begun to find its footing in the galaxy. Was it wise to take on such responsibility so soon? He glanced at Karen, who seemed deep in thought as well. "Do you really think we're ready for this?" Daniel asked finally, turning back to Nira. "We're still learning how to navigate all of this." Nira tilted her head slightly, her large, luminous eyes reflecting sincerity. "You have already done more than most. Your courage has inspired others. You do not need to carry this burden alone. We will stand with you." Karen spoke up then, her tone resolute. "This isn't about power or control," she said firmly. "It's about giving everyone a chance to thrive. If we don't act now, nothing will change." After much discussion, Daniel agreed. Earth would host the first summit of what would come to be known as the Free Worlds Coalition. Delegates from dozens of species traveled to Geneva, filling the streets with vibrant colors and unfamiliar languages. For the first time in history, humanity found itself at the center of something greater, a movement for unity and mutual protection. But not everyone welcomed this new development. Across the galaxy, whispers of discontent grew louder. The Krylos Empire, led by the ruthless General Varnock, watched these events with growing anger. To Varnock, Earth's rise represented a direct challenge to his authority. He viewed the Free Worlds Coalition as a threat to the order he had worked so hard to maintain, an order built on fear and submission. In secret, Varnock began plotting. His spies infiltrated member planets of the coalition, sowing discord and sabotaging infrastructure. Cyber attacks disrupted communications, while cloaked warships launched surprise raids on vulnerable colonies. Panic spread among the coalition members, and some began to question whether allying with Earth had been a mistake. When reports of these attacks reached Earth, Richard Hayes and Emily Dawson sprang into action once again. They worked tirelessly to develop countermeasures, designing advanced detection systems to uncover hidden threats and creating stronger defenses to protect allied worlds. Meanwhile, Daniel and Karen traveled to affected planets, offering aid and rallying support. "We knew this wouldn't be easy," Karen told a group of frightened colonists during one visit. "But giving up now means letting fear rule us. We've come too far to turn back." Her words resonated deeply, reigniting hope in those who had begun to doubt. Slowly but surely, the coalition began to rebuild, stronger and more united than before. Yet everyone knew that the true test was still ahead. The Krylos Empire was a formidable foe, and defeating it would require every ounce of courage and ingenuity humanity and its allies could muster. As Daniel stood on a balcony one evening, gazing at the stars, he couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was watching. Humanity had walked away from the negotiating table once, refusing to bow to tyranny. Now, they were stepping onto a much larger stage, one where the stakes were higher than ever before. The conflict with the Krylos Empire reached its boiling point near Proxima Centauri, where the Free Worlds Coalition prepared for what would become the largest battle in its short history. Dozens of ships from allied species gathered in formation, their engines glowing like stars against the dark void of space. Humanity's vessels stood at the heart of the fleet, equipped with technology developed during Earth's period of isolation. Richard Hayes and Emily Dawson had worked tirelessly to ensure every ship was armed with the latest advancements, quantum-powered weapons, AI-guided drones, and energy shields capable of withstanding heavy fire. Daniel Carter and Karen Lewis were aboard the command vessel, overseeing the operation. They stood side by side on the bridge, watching as data streamed across holographic displays. The tension was palpable, but there was no room for fear now. This was the moment they had been preparing for, the chance to prove that unity could overcome even the most powerful enemies. General Varnock's armada arrived without warning, emerging from the shadows of nearby asteroids. Hundreds of sleek, menacing ships filled the sky, their hulls bristling with weaponry. Varnock himself broadcast a message to the coalition forces, his voice cold and mocking. "You think you can stand against me? You are nothing but insects swarming around a flame. I will extinguish you." Karen clenched her fists, anger flashing in her eyes. She turned to Daniel, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "Let him talk. We'll show him who the real insects are." The battle began with a deafening roar of energy blasts and explosions. The Krylos ships moved with precision, their attacks coordinated and relentless. But the coalition forces held their ground. Richard's quantum reactors powered devastating cannons that tore through enemy defenses, while Emily's eye-controlled fighters darted between larger ships, targeting weak points with surgical accuracy. Amidst the chaos, Karen made a bold decision. She climbed into a prototype starfighter, determined to lead a daring strike against Varnak's flagship. "I'm not sitting this one out," she told Daniel before climbing into the cockpit. He wanted to argue, to insist she stay safe, but he knew better. Karen was as fearless as she was strategic, and her presence in the fight might make all the difference. As Karen's fighter soared into the fray, she felt a surge of adrenaline. Her hands gripped the controls tightly, guiding the small craft through a storm of laser fire. Behind her, a squadron of drones provided cover, their movements synchronized perfectly thanks to Emily's programming. Together, they carved a path toward Varnak's massive command ship. Reaching the flagship, Karen launched a concentrated barrage of missiles at its main cannon. The weapon exploded in a brilliant flash, disabling the ship's primary means of attack. Cheers erupted across the coalition fleet as Varnak's forces faltered, their confidence shaken. Sensing an opportunity, Daniel ordered a full assault, pushing the advantage while the enemy was vulnerable. Back on Earth, President Laura Bennett watched the battle unfold from a secure command center. Her hands trembled slightly as she listened to updates from the front lines. Every report brought both relief and dread. Humanity had come so far, but the cost of victory was still unknown. Finally, after hours of relentless fighting, the Krylos forces began to retreat. Their ships turned tail, disappearing into the depths of space. Varnak's empire, once feared across the galaxy, crumbled under the weight of its own arrogance. The coalition forces cheered, their voices echoing through the comms channels. They had won, but it wasn't without sacrifice. Many lives had been lost, and scars remained etched deeply into the hearts of those who survived. As the dust settled, Daniel looked out at the battered but victorious fleet. He felt a mix of pride and sorrow, knowing the road ahead would still be long. But one thing was certain: humanity and its allies had proven that standing together could change the course of history. And somewhere, deep in the vastness of space, others were watching and learning. In the days following the battle near Proxima Centauri, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The defeat of the Krylos Empire sent shockwaves through every corner of known space. For centuries, Varnak's forces had ruled through fear and intimidation, crushing any who dared oppose them. Now, their fall proved that even the strongest empires could be brought down, if others were brave enough to unite against them. Daniel Carter stood on the bridge of the command ship, staring at the stars outside the viewport. His mind was heavy with thoughts of the lives lost during the fight. Though the coalition had won, the cost weighed heavily on him. Karen walked in quietly, her face pale but determined. She had barely rested since returning from her daring mission against Varnak's flagship, but she refused to slow down. There was still work to do. "We need to send aid to the affected planets," Karen said, breaking the silence. "The Krylos didn't just attack our ships. They hit colonies, destroyed infrastructure, and left millions without food or shelter." Daniel nodded, rubbing his temples. "I know. We're already coordinating shipments of supplies and repair teams, but it's going to take time. Rebuilding won't happen overnight." Karen sighed, leaning against the wall. "Do you think they'll see us as heroes, or as fools for taking on something so big?" Daniel turned to look at her, his expression softening. "Maybe both. But what matters is that we gave people hope. That's more than they had before." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Richard Hayes and Emily Dawson worked around the clock to develop new technologies aimed at preventing future attacks. Richard focused on creating early warning systems capable of detecting cloaked ships like those used by the Krylos. Emily, on the other hand, designed autonomous repair drones that could quickly fix damaged structures on colony worlds. Their efforts weren't just about defense. They were about showing the galaxy that humanity was committed to protecting its allies. As news of the Coalition's victory spread, smaller species began reaching out, eager to join the movement. Some sought refuge under the Coalition's protection, while others offered resources and support. Mira, the Valen ambassador, played a key role in welcoming these newcomers, ensuring they felt valued and included. Under her guidance, the Coalition grew stronger, its message of unity resonating with more beings than anyone had anticipated. But not everyone celebrated the Coalition's success. In the shadows of the galaxy, whispers of discontent grew louder. Powerful factions, once content to let the Krylos maintain order through fear, now saw the Free Worlds Coalition as a threat to their own dominance. Secret meetings took place aboard hidden stations, where leaders plotted how to dismantle the alliance before it became too strong. Despite these dangers, Daniel and Karen continued their diplomatic efforts, traveling from world to world to strengthen ties within the Coalition. They spoke to crowds of frightened colonists, assuring them that no one would face oppression alone anymore. On one such visit, Karen addressed a group of survivors whose planet had been ravaged by the Krylos. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke, but her words carried conviction. "We've shown that standing together makes us stronger," she told them. "We won't let anyone take that away. Not now, not ever." Her speech inspired cheers, but privately, Daniel worried about what lay ahead. He knew the Coalition's enemies wouldn't stay quiet for long. Still, he reminded himself why they had started this journey: to create a galaxy where freedom wasn't a privilege held by a few, but a right shared by all. One evening, as Daniel gazed at the stars from his quarters, he thought about how far humanity had come. Just months ago, they had walked away from the negotiating table, refusing to bow to tyranny. Now, they stood at the center of a movement that promised to reshape the galaxy. It was a daunting responsibility, but also an incredible opportunity, one Daniel was determined not to waste. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once. It wouldn't make that mistake again. The galaxy seemed quieter after the fall of the Krylos Empire, but beneath the surface, tension simmered. The Free Worlds Coalition had grown stronger, its message of unity spreading to distant corners of space. Yet powerful factions that once thrived on oppression weren't ready to fade into obscurity. They watched Earth and its allies with growing unease, plotting their next move. Daniel Carter and Karen Lewis continued their work, traveling between worlds to strengthen the Coalition. On one such trip, they visited a small mining colony on the edge of known space. The colonists were wary at first, unsure if the Coalition could truly protect them. But as Daniel and Karen spoke about the importance of standing together, the mood shifted. By the end of their visit, the colonists cheered, pledging their support. Back on Earth, Richard Hayes and Emily Dawson pushed forward with new projects. Richard had developed a network of sensors capable of detecting even the faintest signs of cloaked ships. Emily's drones, now equipped with advanced repair capabilities, worked tirelessly to rebuild damaged colonies. Their innovations gave the Coalition an edge, but both knew the fight wasn't over. One day, reports came in of strange activity near the outer rim of the galaxy. Ships belonging to rogue factions had been spotted gathering in secret. It was clear they were planning something big. When Daniel and Karen received the news, they called an emergency meeting with the Coalition's leaders. "We can't wait for them to strike," Karen said firmly. "We need to act now." Daniel agreed. "If we hit them first, we can disrupt their plans before they're ready." The Coalition launched a preemptive strike, sending a fleet to intercept the rogue forces. The battle was fierce, with both sides suffering heavy losses. But thanks to Richard's sensor network, the Coalition had the advantage, spotting hidden ships and neutralizing threats before they could attack. Emily's drones repaired damaged vessels mid-battle, keeping the fleet operational. As the dust settled, the rogue factions retreated, their plans thwarted. The coalition had won again, but the victory felt hollow. Too many lives had been lost, and the constant fighting was taking its toll. Daniel stood on the bridge of the command ship, staring at the wreckage floating in space. Karen joined him, her face lined with exhaustion. "Do you think it'll ever end?" she asked softly. "I don't know," Daniel admitted, "but we have to keep trying. If we stop, everything we fought for will be lost." On Earth, President Laura Bennett addressed the United Nations, urging citizens to stay strong. "This isn't just about us," she said. "It's about every species out there looking for a chance to live free. We can't give up now." The coalition pressed on, expanding its reach and welcoming new members. Trade routes reopened, and alliances grew stronger. Slowly, the galaxy began to heal. Colonies rebuilt their homes, and children who had never known peace started to dream of brighter futures. But Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy still underestimated humanity. He thought about all they had achieved, walking away from the negotiating table, standing against the Zorathians, and defeating the Krylos Empire. Each step had been hard-fought, but each had proven that humanity was more than just another species trying to survive. One evening, as he stood on a balcony overlooking Earth's capital city, Karen joined him. "Do you think we'll ever get to see the galaxy at peace?" she asked. Daniel smiled faintly. "Maybe not in our lifetime, but we're laying the foundation for it. Someday, someone will look back and say it all started here, with us." Karen nodded, her eyes reflecting the glow of the city lights below. "Then let's make sure we leave something worth remembering." Together, they gazed at the stars, knowing the road ahead would still be long. But they also knew that humanity had already changed the galaxy, and it wasn't done yet. Years passed, and the galaxy slowly transformed under the influence of the Free Worlds Coalition. The scars of past battles began to fade as colonies rebuilt themselves. Trade flourished between planets, and new technologies improved life for countless species. Humanity had risen from obscurity to become a symbol of resilience and unity, proving that even the smallest voice could spark change when it refused to be silenced. Daniel Carter and Karen Lewis found themselves at the heart of this transformation. They no longer traveled as much, their roles shifting from diplomats on the front lines to advisors guiding the next generation of leaders. Young representatives from Earth and other worlds now carried the torch, inspired by the courage Daniel and Karen had shown in standing up to the Zorathians and defeating the Krylos Empire. One evening, Daniel stood on a balcony overlooking Geneva, where the Coalition's headquarters gleamed under the setting sun. The building was alive with activity. Aliens of all shapes and sizes walked its halls, exchanging ideas and forging partnerships. It was a far cry from the tense negotiation rooms of years past, where humanity had been dismissed as insignificant. Now, Earth's blue flag flew proudly alongside those of dozens of allied species. Karen joined him, holding 2 cups of steaming tea. She handed one to Daniel before leaning against the railing. "Do you remember when we first started this?" she asked, her tone light but tinged with nostalgia. Daniel chuckled softly. "How could I forget? We were just trying to keep our heads above water back then." Karen smiled, gazing out at the horizon. "And look at us now. Who would have thought we'd end up here?" The Coalition had grown beyond anything they could have imagined. Smaller species that once lived in fear now thrived under its protection. Trade routes once controlled by tyrants were open to everyone. Even former enemies had begun reaching out, seeking reconciliation rather than conflict. It wasn't perfect. There were still challenges, disputes, and moments of doubt. But it was progress. Richard Hayes and Emily Dawson continued to push boundaries, their inventions shaping the future of the galaxy. Richard's quantum reactors powered entire star systems, while Emily's AI systems helped manage resources more efficiently than ever before. Their work ensured that the Coalition remained strong, not just militarily but economically and socially. As Daniel sipped his tea, he thought about how far humanity had come. When they walked away from the negotiating table all those years ago, few believed they could succeed. Yet here they were, leading an alliance that spanned light years and brought hope to billions. "We didn't do this alone," Daniel said finally, breaking the silence. "It was everyone. The scientists, the engineers, the soldiers, the ordinary people who kept believing even when things seemed impossible." Karen nodded. "That's what makes it special. We didn't fight for power or control. We fought because it was the right thing to do. And maybe that's why others followed." Far beyond Earth, alien civilizations looked to the blue planet with admiration and perhaps a touch of envy. Humanity had shown that standing together could overcome even the greatest odds. By walking away from the negotiating table, they had taken the first step towards something greater. A united galaxy built on trust, cooperation, and shared dreams. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Daniel and Karen stood side by side, content in the knowledge that they had played a part in creating something lasting. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once, but it wouldn't make that mistake again. And as long as there were people willing to stand up for what was right, the spirit of unity would continue to shine brightly across the cosmos.